Hi, this is James, and I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Outlook for the week starting September the 5th, 2016. September the 5th is Labor Day, so if you are observing the Labor Day holiday, I want to wish you a happy Labor Day. I hope you have a good day and that you have a safe holiday. So, keeping with the rotational aspect of this series, because I work with Tarot, Lenormand, and Angel cards, this week's reading is going to be done with the Lenormand, and specifically I'm using the Piatnik Lenormand, so I'm going to hold the box up. The Piatnik Lenormand. This is a traditional deck that is published by AGM over in Austria, and one of the reasons why I like the more traditional decks when I'm working with Lenormand is because they have the playing card inserts on the cards, and when I read with Lenormand, I actually like using the playing card inserts. When I got into card reading, and I don't know if I've really shared this with too many people, but I had a dream. It was in 1998. I had a dream that I was reading playing cards. I had never used playing cards in that way in waking life, so it was a surprise to me when I was doing it in the dream. And I woke up from the dream, and to make a long story short, looked in the dream dictionary, and it said that playing cards were related to tarot cards, and that's how I actually got into reading tarot cards. So playing cards are very significant and very important for me, and so I like Lenormand decks that have them prominently displayed because I actually use them in the reading. And so if you're here for the first time, you'll get to see that, and if you're returning, then you know that I actually use those in a segment that I call Looking for the Dynamics, which I will do in this reading as well. So again, this is the Piatnik Lenormand, and so now, because I read Lenormand in pairs and triplets and combinations, what I'm going to do from this point is I'm going to shift the camera to the table, so this way you can get a close-up of the cards, because I'll be going back and forth to the cards and referring to them in combinations and such. And so it's easier if, instead of me holding a card up, that I just shift to the table. So if you hang tight, we'll get right to that. And now that I've readjusted the camera, I'm going to be taking the deck in hand. I'm going to shuffle the cards. And as I do in every one of my weekly general readings, the intention is asking for information that is going to help us move through the upcoming week. Shuffle one more time. Then I'm going to cut the deck into three. And when I work with the Lenormand for these videos, I do a line of 5, so I'm going to draw the top 5 cards from the deck. And these are our cards for the week. I'm just going to take a moment to readjust them. All right. And if you're no stranger to my Lenormand videos, what I usually do is I start with the middle card. The middle card is what I call the central issue or the focus. It's going to let us know what the focus for the week is. So starting with that card, we have the snake. So the snake, for me, my first go-to keyword for the snake is complication. So this could be a week where we're dealing with complications. Sometimes this card can represent entanglements and things that are a long and winding process because the snake coils, and so that can represent like whatever the situation that we're going to be experiencing is not going to be a straight line or a straight shot, like I like to say. It's going to be a long and winding process. It's going to have twists and turns, that kind of energy. Now, going with the idea here that the inset is a Queen of Clubs, this is what's known as a face card. So this could be, for someone watching this video, it could be that a woman is going to be playing a central issue for you this week. She may be a complication, or she may be a problem, going with the characteristics of snake. It's mindful of that she could be somebody who may not be the most honest person to deal with, or the truth is the most forthcoming thing from her, because sometimes the snake can represent like having a forked tongue or deceit or lies or something of that nature. It could also be, because this image just popped into my head, I'm seeing the opening credits of one of my favorite TV shows, Scandal. So sometimes this can represent either being embroiled in a scandal, again that would be going with the entanglement issue, or that the woman is either involved in a scandal or she's got like a scandalous character or a scandalous nature to her. So I'm seeing that as possibilities for the week ahead. Now, also, the Queen of Clubs for me has been known to be a woman who has dark hair and glasses. So that's just a physical characteristic. She may have glasses and dark hair. She could also be very clever and intelligent, because the snake can represent somebody who's clever and intelligent. If this is a working situation, and then we would know that more with the surrounding cards. But if this is more like a working situation, let's say, then the snake card could represent somebody who is kind of a rival. So, somebody who is a competitor or competition, something of that nature. So again, summing up, the snake for me, the first go-to is that it can represent a complication or a problem, something that's very complex, or something that is long and winding in terms of getting it resolved, or something that has a lot of twists and turns. It can represent getting entangled in something, and if that's the case, it may be something that is not in your best interest or not in your highest good. And then the last thing is that it can actually represent a woman. So it could be a woman who has glasses, dark hair, who is clever and intelligent, or it may be some sort of rival. Sometimes I'm seeing with that, the expression like she may not be a friend and she may not be an enemy, but she may be a frenemy. So I'm seeing that. So those are characteristics with the snake. So now to get more information, because Lenormand is not read solely with a single card, I moved to the outer cards to kind of give us more information about the central issue. So flanking, we have the key on the left side and we have the birds on the right side. Okay, so now what I do is I usually like to look at these as a pair to kind of inform us more about the central card. So for me, key on this side, key, it represents things like something being important, something being true, something being certain. So here we have a very interesting dichotomy, because the key can represent truth, and then the snake can represent lies or deceit. So we have a very interesting dichotomy here. The key for me can also represent a discovery, a revelation, an answer, or a solution. So those are my go-tos with the key. And the key can also represent a yes. This is like one of my yes cards. So I'm seeing that as possibilities with the key. On the other side, we have the birds. So my first go-to with the birds is that this can represent communication and conversation. And this is very interesting because we are in the midst of Mercury being in retrograde. Mercury went retrograde last week, so it's very interesting that we have here the birds, because it's letting us know that it's going to be very important in terms of the key, how we communicate and communications this week. So communications are going to be very important because there's a possibility for complications. And I'm seeing that as misunderstandings, problems, problems communicating. It could be, if we go with the idea here, birds can also be about partnerships, because there's two birds on the card. So it could be a one-on-one conversation, or it could be a conversation within a partnership or relationship where one person is telling the truth and the other person may not be so. And it could be a discovery of a lie or a discovery of deceit. In that, because I'm seeing the key as revelation, discovery. So it could be discovery of some kind of deceit, like somebody tells a lie and then they get caught up in the lie. And caught up, remember I said the snake is about entanglements, so it's about getting caught up. So, but the gist here is about communications are going to be very, very important because of this idea here about the central theme being complications and problems. So I'm seeing that. So now let's take a look at the outer cards for more information. So on the left we have the ring, and on the right side we have the bouquet. Okay, so now ring is a card that can represent commitment. It can represent commitment, contracts, agreements, things of that nature. So it could be an actual contract or commitment. In that regard, it can also be going with the idea here that birds is in the line. It can represent a partnership or relationship. Then the ring, of course, can represent a marriage or a serious committed relationship. So I'm seeing that as possibilities. For me, going with the idea here that we have communication being an issue possibly, then the ring here could be, especially at the beginning of the line, something that is recurring, something that happens in cycles or patterns. So I'm seeing that as a possibility, but I'm also seeing this as the possibility of a promise, and whether the promise has been kept or not. Going again with the snake being the card that represents complication, if we pair snake and ring, we have a complicated relationship. So I'm seeing that as a possibility here. So there's the ring on the one side. Here on the other side of the line, we have bouquet. Now, bouquet is a card that can represent surprise. It can represent a gift. It can represent invitation. It can also represent appreciation. So I'm seeing this appreciation. It can also represent talent, creativity. So I'm seeing that now. Going with the idea that we pair these two cards, it could be that there is a surprise engagement or a contract that turns out wonderfully, because the bouquet can be about things being beautiful, wonderful, pleasant. So I'm seeing that it could be a pleasant agreement or a pleasant commitment. But I'm going to go here more with something of a surprise nature. It could be like a surprise or an invitation that's recurring, a person's extending an invitation again and again, or it could be like renewing something. I'm seeing this, so it could be that. So I'm looking at that as possibilities for the ring and the bouquet. So now what we can do is we can look at the first two cards. If we look at this as, something from the past, if we go, these cards are the past, this is the present, and these cards are the future, then here we have ring and key, and we can have an important relationship or an important contract or an important commitment, something that's important, or that there is something that's recurring, like a, recurring answer or solution, being committed. So if there's a question about commitment, it's like being committed is the answer. But I'm seeing this more as a key relationship or a key commitment or a key agreement, something that's very, very important. So I'm seeing that. Here on the other side, we have birds and bouquet. So here we have a surprising conversation or a surprising discussion or a discussion about talent or a discussion about appreciation or a relationship that is becoming wonderful or becoming pleasant. So it could be there was a complication, but it's been talked out and now it's turned out to be pleasant, beautiful, that kind of energy. So if we look at this as the the beginning, the middle, and the end, so it could be something that started out as a complication, got discussed, got worked out, and then has become pleasant. And as I'm looking at that, I'm looking at the playing cards, and so here we have a queen and a queen. So we have two women. So it could be something going on between two women, and then the birds would say that possibly there is some talking going on between two women. It could be one is threatened by the other one, because the snake could be a card that can represent a rival, somebody who's jealous, envious, that kind of energy. And then on this side here, the bouquet then would just be describing this woman as she's beautiful, she's attractive, she's creative, that kind of thing. So it could be like one woman is threatened by the other one. And then birds, in that regard, if communication is an issue, then it could be one woman is spreading rumors or gossip or some kind of speculation about the other woman, because birds in that regard becomes gossip, rumor, and speculation. And it could even be that, this conversation, for lack of a better word, this communication is being played out on social media, because the birds then could be like a tweet. So there could be like what do they call those? They call those, I think, like Twitter wars or Twitter feuds or something of that nature. And it's like it starts with one woman, but she's like attacking the other woman, but she's doing it through rumor, through gossip, through speculation, and it may even be that it's not the truth, because the snake can also be, somebody who tells lies. But it could be, so I'm seeing that as a possibility. So it would be interesting for those of us who, keep our eyes peeled on activity online on the internet. It would be interesting to see if this actually plays out the way I'm seeing it here in the line. So there's that. So I would be looking at this as, an important relationship, or a key relationship becomes complicated, and frustrating, because it's another aspect of the birds. So an important relationship becomes complicated, and frustrating, and there's a discussion needing to take place, and it may be as a result of maybe some rumor or speculation. It could even be like the relationship has had a lot of entanglements and complications, and it's become frustrating. So there needs to be a conversation between the two parties to help resolve it. And so it could lead to a surprise, at the end. It could be a surprising resolution, a surprising conclusion. It could be like, if the parties are not married or engaged, it could be leading to a surprise engagement or, a surprise commitment, something of that nature, whereas the ring represents a serious bond. So it could be getting closer to that. So that's how I would see the line. And, there's a significant relationship that takes a surprising turn, some sort of complication that needs to be discussed, but it turns out that it might end very pleasantly, or it's going to have a surprising ending. And there may be two women in particular that are involved. So I'm seeing that as the line. So now what we can do is we can look at the playing cards, because when I read Lenormand, I read it in three facets. So I look at the image first and the keywords associated with that. Then I look at the playing cards. So that's the second one, and we'll do that. And then the last thing I do is I take the numbers and drill it down to its essence. So now let's look at the playing cards for more information. And so now we're going to take a closer look at the playing cards for the reading for this week. And so starting from left to right, we have the Ace of Clubs on the ring, we have the Eight of Diamonds on the key, we have the Queen of Clubs, like I mentioned before, on the snake, we have the Seven of Diamonds on the birds, and we have the Queen of Spades on the bouquet. So the first thing that jumps out at me, and I said this in the previous segment, we have two queens. So it could be something that involves two women specifically this week, because each of those are face cards. And then we have two diamonds. So diamonds is the suit that for me represents things having to do with the physical world. So could be career, could be money, could be physical well-being, things of that nature. So that could be a focus, especially with the Seven of Diamonds being in between the two queens. So the Seven of Diamonds in that particular case could be, for me, I read it as like waiting for results, reaping a harvest, something that's been sown. And the idea here is like you're getting the payoff, or you're getting the benefit, or you're getting the end result of that intention. So between the two women, it could be just a matter of looking at what each one is intending for their relationship. If they are embroiled in a conversation, it could be like, what's the intention for the conversation? I'm noticing the dynamic here. We have the one queen facing the other queen, but she's looking in another direction. So it could be, again, that's symbolic of a possible disagreement, saying that the two parties involved are not facing the same way. They're not looking each other in the face, kind of thing. So it could be like this queen here, the snake queen, is kind of ignoring or rejecting this other person. So, or she sees the situation in a different way because they're not looking the same way. Or it could be, another possibility, maybe putting a more positive spin on it. They're each facing the same direction, so maybe they have a common goal. But I'm seeing this as something that's being between them, is the Seven of Diamonds. And as I'm thinking that, if they are talking about the relationship, let's say, it could be like the Seven of Diamonds for me is a card that comes up when we're needing to look at the energy that we've been investing in a particular relationship or a particular situation, and we're looking at it in terms of like, am I getting the return on my investment? Meaning, like, is the energy that I'm putting into this, is it really worth it? And so going with that, then birds would be, again, saying like it's a source of frustration, it's a source of anxiety, it's getting people, stressed up and worked up, about it. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. But anyway, birds in that context would be something that's very frustrating. And it's leading to the question, like, is this worth it? Because I'm hearing, in my head, I'm hearing a Pet Shop Boys song, and it's called, Was It Worth It? So for me, that usually represents, like, is the return on the energy that I'm putting into this situation, is it worth it? Is it worth me continuing to kind of put myself out there in this way? So that's the energy I'm getting with that. So, okay, so now what I do is, keeping with the idea that snake is the central focus, I'm going to add the playing cards on this side, and this is one side of the issue, and then do the same on this side, and this is the other side of the issue. So here we have 1 plus 8, and that's 9. And the 9th card in the deck is, interestingly enough, it's the bouquet, which is at the end of the line. So I'm going to move it for a moment and place it over here. So here on this side of the complication, here we have something that may be a surprise. So it could be, a surprising complication, whatever this complexity is, whatever this problem is. It could be, again, noting that it's something surprising. Now, going with the idea here that ring and key can represent an important commitment or an important agreement or an important contract, then the bouquet, describing that more, could be, a surprise. It could be an invitation, being extended within this important relationship. It could be that there is an issue about appreciation within this important or significant relationship. So it could be like, it could be a demonstration or a show of appreciation might be the thing that's needed in this important relationship, especially if there is some sort of complication going on. So I'm seeing that. It could also be, too, if the snake is about, a lie or a deceit, and then the key is about the truth being discovered or revealed within an important relationship, then it's about the idea about the beauty of the truth or the gift of the truth in a relationship. So I'm seeing that. It could also be, again, it's highlighting the importance of this relationship to this particular woman, if we go with the idea here that the bouquet can also be describing a woman. So it could just be about her. She may play an important role or an important part in this relationship, or she may actually be the person who discovers whatever this is revealing here, this discovery. It may involve her, she may play a part in it, it may be about her, that kind of thing. So I'm seeing that with the bouquet on this side. I'm going to put the bouquet back, and now here on this side we have the 7 of diamonds, so that's 7, and then the queens in cartomancy for me are valued at 12. So we have 7 and 12, and that's 19, and the 19th card in the deck is the Tower. So I'm looking for the Tower, and one of the keywords for me for the Tower can represent institutions. So it can represent a company, it can represent, here we are. The Tower can represent a company, it can represent a corporation, it can represent a firm of some kind, it can represent an institution. Going with the idea here, if the ring on the other end of the line can represent a commitment, it could represent a contract, then this tower card can represent, a contract with a company or corporation or an institution of some kind. It can also represent that whatever this commitment is, or whatever this contract is, or whatever this pledge or promise or vow, that on some level it's going to become official, because I tend to look at the tower as something that's becoming official. So there's that as a possibility. Here we have, a conversation, could be something that's a surprise or an invitation. So it could be, this is taking on a different kind of energy now. The birds being a card of communication and conversation, this is a card of verbal communication. So for me, it could represent like speaking and public speaking. So it could be like there is an opportunity for a speaking engagement, and that would make sense with the ring too. A speaking engagement, somebody, as a speaker, has been extended an invitation to come to a building of some kind, because the tower can represent high buildings, tall buildings. So it could be like coming out to a company or corporation and giving some kind of talk. So I'm seeing that like it's a speaking engagement. So I'm seeing that. And then this snake card could be maybe like there may be some complexities or some complications in getting this speaking engagement working. Some things need to be worked out. I'm seeing like, some kinks need to be worked out, that kind of energy. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. I'm looking to see if there's any other things. The other thing here I mentioned too, like this could be a working relationship. At the very beginning I mentioned that with the snake. So this is coming back in possibly. So it could be like a company, so there could be a company rival or competition in that regard, somebody from another firm, or two people within an existing company. There's a scandal or something going on in that kind of thing. And this just popped out at me in the moment. If we go with the idea here too, like sometimes this card can represent things of a legal nature, rules, regulations, policy. So for some reason I'm getting like the kind of like political slant or political landscape. It could be like maybe some communication between two people in a political landscape or political arena, and it's a matter of who's lying and who's telling the truth kind of thing, and there may be some sort of scandal that is kind of coming out that may have to do with politics, something of that nature. So if you are like a political science person, or you're really into what's going on with the political landscape, both here, I'm in the States, so both here in the States and maybe abroad, this might play out this week. We might find out something along those lines, but I'm seeing that it could be like maybe a promise that maybe has hit the skids, or some sort of lie or a scandal is going to be involved in some sort of commitment, some sort of agreement, something of that nature, and it's about getting that worked out once the scandal happens. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. So that's how I would read the cards here. And so the one last thing we can do is we can take a look at all the cards in the line, the playing cards, and add them all up. So we have an ace, which is 1. We have 8. We have 12 for the queen. You have 7, and then another 12. And that gives us a total of 40. So there are 36 cards in the deck. So when I have a number over 36, I add the digits together. So 4 plus 0 is 4. And the fourth card in the deck, and I have it right here, is the house. So the house can take on a couple of meanings. So first thing with the house, it can represent one's home life, one's family. So I'm seeing that as a possibility here. So it could be, there could be a complication with the family, could be a complication at home, it could be there's a communication problem within family members. Going with the idea of birds, could be two people, so it could be two people specifically within the family. And with the two queens, it could be, two women who are living under the same roof, who are living together. Now it could be they're in a relationship, They could be relatives, they could be partners, they could be roommates, but it would be with the house, people who are sharing the same space. Now, I talked about a company with the tower. The house could be people who are, in small business together. Could be like they have a retail shop or something of a small business, or, they work from the home. So it could be something of that nature and trying to get something worked out. There may be a complication with that. I'm looking at the inset, and here we have the King of Hearts. So going with the idea here that we have two women involved, and sometimes the snake in this regard can represent the other woman in a relationship, committed relationship. So it could be the discovery of another woman in a relationship between a man and a woman. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. And if that's the case, that could be leading to the idea here of isolation or separation with the tower and making that official. So I don't know, that's just coming out at me in the moment. So those are some possibilities with the house. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shift gears, and we're going to look at the essence line, which is derived from looking at the numerical values of all the cards. And now, to figure out the essence card for the week, I'm going to take the numbers on the card. So we have 25 for the ring, 33 for the key, 7 for the snake, 12 for the birds, and 9 for the bouquet. We have a total of 86. Again, it's over 36. So 8 plus 6 is 14. And the 14th card in the deck is the fox. So while I'm looking for that, my first go-to with the fox is that, for me, it's a self-employment card. So it can represent job, employment, and self-employment. So again, going with the idea here that, a couple of cards have pointed out that this could be a work-related issue. So it could be the idea here that there is, a competition, or, somebody is dealing with a rival in the business sense. Then the fox is also about having a craft or a skill, and that would make sense going with the bouquet at the end of the line representing a talent. So it could be, there could be an idea here about, with the business per se, if a person's working from home and they're self-employed, they may be having some sort of complication with that. Since I mentioned the idea here of the possibility of 3 people in a relationship, the fox in that regard can represent cheating. Because this card can represent, along with the snake, it can represent like somebody who's conning somebody who's being scammed, somebody who's being taken advantage of, somebody who's being manipulated, that kind of energy. And so going with the cheating aspect of it, it would make sense if we go with the idea here that snake is the other woman in a significant or an important relationship, and that is discovered. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. So somebody may discover that there is a third party that they didn't know about in their existing relationship. Or it could be, I'm going with this, especially if maybe that's been a problem in the past, because I mentioned the ring being something recurring. And so it could be like somebody has made a promise about like not doing that kind of thing again, and then they get caught doing it again. So there's that possibility. So I would read that as, 1, fox could be about, one's job or employment, self-employment, and with that there may be some sort of competition, and having a strategy to work through some sort of complication within the business, or complication with this other person, this other party, that kind of energy. Or if we go with the idea here that this is about a relationship, somebody's personal relationship, their home life, then it could be the idea here that there may be another party involved with that. And, the person feeling, a sense of frustration, feeling like they've been taken advantage of, they've been manipulated, they've been lied to, that kind of energy, and needing to work that out. And it may lead to, the idea here of isolation and separation, and making that official with the tower. So that is how I would read the cards for the week. This has been the Oracle Outlook with the Lenormand, or the Lenormand. I am James Mitchell, and as I sign off, I want to thank you for sharing this space here with me this week. And I look forward to sharing this same space here with you again next week for the next Oracle Outlook. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. And until we get together in the future, Take care.